Good morning, folks. Welcome to another reading. This time, a story called Digital Devil Saga, the novels that inspired the Shin Megami Tensei series. Hello, Jeff. Hello, Adrian. Gandhi, are you going to come over and visit the camera? There's the boy! Oh, how cute. Your little run was adorable. So this is a very early morning stream. I'm experimenting with streaming earlier in the morning, seeing what times people are available. Tomorrow we'll probably try 9, see how folks show up then. Just go up an hour every day, see how it works. Oh, kitty. All right, so this is an experiment. I've never read this book. Hello, Phil. It is called Reincarnation of the Goddess, written by Nishitani Aya. And it's translated by Fans Masakato, edited by Zayahava, and I will post a link in the description for folks to check it out. I changed the font back on the cat cam. It's too late, I can't. I've destroyed the image. It's gone forever. So this is a few decades old. I believe it came out in the 80s or 90s. I'm actually going to check that because I'm curious. Another piece of the sci-fi horror history of Japanese literature. Let's see. Let's see the book. No, those are both the games. Where is the book? Let's see if here we go. Sci-fi fantasy novels by Aya Nishitani. Can I look up the lady? Digital Devil Storybook. Okay, well that's the... No, I wonder if the book doesn't have a... Let's see. Goodness. Apparently the video game series is just totally, unsurprisingly, overshadowed the book series. Hello, Sergey. Daniel, welcome. Yep, she does not have a book page. Oh, that's sad. I'm very surprised that these books have never been brought over. Well, I guess they kind of I don't know. I don't think she's publishing much anymore, so unlike, people like Hideyuki Kikuchi who are still publishing, the name hasn't been kept around, so I guess she's fallen out of favor, alas. We are going into this blind, so... Oh. Kitty, why'd you do that? I don't know what we're going to find, but we'll find out together. Let's start my music. Let me know if it's too loud. Prologue, Chapter 1. This story takes place 18 years ago, when most people did not even know the existence of the internet and personal computers were normally thought of as standalone devices. In a town called Kuniritsu, a suburb of Tokyo, there was a school known as Jusho High. Everything began in the school one day when a tall student impatiently burst into a room at the end of class. He stormed across the classroom to stop at the seat of a handsome young man who stood out from the rest of his class and ominously slammed the top of the desk. "You Nakajima?" "Yes, that's me." Ignoring the sudden vibration that the desk sent through his body, Nakajima Akemi resolutely stood up and looked the student in the eye. Kondo Hiroyuki was the captain of the karate club and the unofficial student boss of Jusho High. More than one student whom had dared oppose him had been forced to change schools, usually through violent means. Nakajima had never even interacted with Kondo before. He certainly couldn't think of anything he might have done to make him this angry. What gives? I haven't done anything. Nakajima gulped and started to open his parched mouth to speak. At that moment, he heard a suppressed giggle from behind him. Nakajima turned his head and saw her. Bewitching, charming. She almost seemed too sophisticated to be a student. She was staring at him, her cat-like gaze alluring yet full of malice. It was one of his classmates, Taka Mizawa Kyoko. Nakajima suddenly understood everything. "Hold on a minute." The same instant Nakajima spoke, a fist flew into his solar plexus. Without even a chance to cry out, Nakajima fell to the floor. Kondo followed up his punch with a low kick. That was followed by single kicks to the chest and lower stomach, carefully placed with enough force to hurt badly but not knock the target out. Afraid of getting involved, Nakajima's classmates started to leave the classroom one by one. "Hear me out." Nakajima tried hard to protest, but his voice was silenced when Kondo's foot slammed into his mouth. His tears and saliva spilled all over the floor. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You gotta learn what happens to people who come on to Kyoko." Kondo kicked Nakajima in the back, flipping him onto his stomach. Kyoko, gleefully watching him get pummeled, kneeled down in front of him and flicked his upper lip with her fingers. "He's got a face like a woman, and he tried to kiss me." Liar. Actually, Kyoko had tried to kiss him, and Nakajima had pushed her away. Her pride hurt. Kyoko had used Kondo and his large crush on her to get revenge. But Nakajima didn't have a single friend to corroborate his story. Only his classmate Takai Kenichi remained in the room, and even he just stood there, worriedly looking at Nakajima through his dark green-rimmed glasses. Apparently he lacked the courage to stop Kondo. "Hello, Lobsol Berserker. Good morning. Thanks for joining us." Kondo pulled Nakajima up from the floor with just his left hand before he thrust his right fist into Nakajima's solar plexus again. It felt like his heart was being torn out. Nakajima tried to cry out, but with the wind knocked out of him, he could neither inhale nor exhale, and all that left his injured lips was a pathetic little moan. Nakajima had always been something of an independent maverick, not wanting to hurt anyone or get himself hurt. So he'd never been beaten like this before. And to think this was all over some stupid reason like rejecting a girl. The combined sensations of pain, anger, and humiliation overwhelmed him, and the wound in his psyche started to bleed, a drop at a time. Seeing him like this, Kyoko watched Nakajima with a look of pure ecstasy in her eyes, and laughed out loud. The sound of her high-pitched laugh reverberating through the classroom pierced Nakajima's eardrums and echoed in his skull, awakening an emotion he'd never experienced before. "Damn you! I'll get you! You won't get away with this!" Nakajima's eyes lit up with a fierce, violent look he'd never worn before. "What's with that look?" Kondo was taken aback for a second by Nakajima's expression. As if mad at himself for faltering, he punched Nakajima hard in the face. At the sound of Nakajima's tooth cracking, Kyoko, as if she'd lost interest in the whole thing, asked, "Hey, don't you think that's enough?" It was the voice of a dirty, cowardly woman worried only about protecting herself. If Nakajima was beaten any harder, there was a real danger of her being held responsible. "Hey, lucky you. Looks like you've gotten a reprieve. I've got to say I'm surprised at what a weak little runt you are. Beating you up was a waste of energy." His mouth twisted into a smile. Kondo unceremoniously dumped Nakajima's body on the floor like a rag doll. "What a nice guy. He seems great." An hour later, after finally being able to move, Nakajima reached the Choshen Kunitachi train station, supported by Takai. "Why don't we sit down?" Still propping Nakajima up, Takai cocked his head in the direction of two open seats nearby. "Huh? Oh, sure." Nakajima collapsed onto the seat and stared forward resolutely, all the while regretting he'd ever applied to this school. Jusho Private High was a famous and prestigious school. Every year, more than 20 of its students were admitted to Tokyo University. However, anyone familiar with the way the school worked would acknowledge the extreme stratification amongst the students. The school was divided into two groups, the general class and the gifted class. The gifted class received better facilities, better curricula, better teaching materials, and in general were favored much more highly. The gifted class comprised about 20% of the student body, and was always the target of constant jealousy and disgruntlement from the general class. With such a gulf between the two, the violent incidents born from this jealousy were bound to be unavoidable. Both Nakajima and Takai were part of the gifted class. With his slender frame and delicate looks, if Nakajima swapped his uniform for a sailor suit, he might very well be able to pass for a beautiful teenage girl. Takai's appearance, on the other hand, was the polar opposite. Judo practice since junior high had given him a rugged body and thick fingers, but his personality was not as tough as his exterior, and when he put on his glasses, he looked almost childlike. "That Kondo, he seemed even worse than usual today," Takai said, almost as if making excuses. He felt a little guilty for not stepping in to help Nakajima. Nakajima raised an eyebrow and responded half-heartedly. His energy doubles whenever he's near a woman. What the heck is someone like Kyoko doing in the gifted class anyway? Besides, you never came on to her in the first place. Actually, it was the other way around. So it was Kyoko that got rejected then. Takai nodded as everything suddenly made sense. Lots of girls were interested in Nakajima, but none of them so far had been able to strike his fancy. Seeing his indifference, Takai always guessed that Nakajima must have extremely finicky tastes when it came to women. The two sat down next to each other in silence as the train passed through Musashi Sakai Station. Takai took a sidelong glance at Nakajima's profile. Among the students of the gifted class, Nakajima's grades were not particularly high. In contrast to Takai, who got good grades in just about everything, Nakajima was really only good at math and science. In the more liberal arts, the only subject he showed real strength in was world history. He wasn't much of an athlete either. However, when it came to computers, nobody in school even came close to Nakajima, not even the teachers. Takai thought you probably wouldn't be able to find someone who was as good as Nakajima in that area if you searched all of Japan, let alone the school. The games that Nakajima would whip up in a matter of days were fantastic. No matter how popular they were, commercial games just seemed boring after playing one of Nakajima's. Sometimes Nakajima's expression looked positively mad as he hunched over one of the terminal writing programs in the school's computer-aided instruction room, his fingers flying across the keyboard. If I'm a prodigy, then Nakajima must be a bona fide genius. Takai nodded to himself as his gaze turned back to the scenery passing by the outside window. Demons, huh? The word tumbled out of Nakajima's mouth suddenly. Huh? No, never mind. Did you just... Just as Takai pursed his lips as if to say something, the train arrived at Nishi Ogikubo Station. See you. Nakajima started to walk down the station stairs with his shoulders hunched and a brooding expression on his face. Geez, what is he thinking? Turning away from Nakajima, Takai plopped himself down on the now 2 empty seats of the train. Prologue, Chapter 2. Clearly the digital devils are going to be coming from a certain someone, it seems. Definitely hinting at it. Though I don't know what if this time period is like the 1980s. I want to know what extremely badass homemade video games this child is making. Prologue, Chapter 2. A banner advertising lots for sale hung from a newly built apartment building behind the shopping district. His gaze downward, Nakajima walked while continuously moving his lips. To any passerby, he appeared like an ordinary high school student, deep in concentration trying to memorize something for a test. But those few people that caught a fragment of his words looked at him suspiciously. His voice intoned something like the low and hostile muttering of a dark spell. Not at all something they'd expect to hear from a high school student. A cherry blossom fell from the nearby concrete wall and landed on Nakajima's cheek, but he ignored it and kept walking, his stare still cast towards the ground. When he finally looked up, he was standing in front of a conspicuously tall apartment building. When his electronic key entered the keyhole, the solid plate glass doors automatically slid open with a heavy sound. The entrance to the building was made from extravagant marble imported from Canada, but still seemed somewhat artificial. As he stepped inside, Nakajima took a deep breath and straightened up. The digital devils are apparently going to come from Spain? Oh, Phil, never change. Opening the door and going inside, Nakajima took off his shoes and negligently tossed them aside before he headed to the bathroom. The injured lip on the face in the mirror had swollen up like a balloon. It was unpleasant to look at. His left cheek had a yellowish bruise on it. After looking at himself in the mirror for a bit, Nakajima abruptly turned on the faucet and splashed his face with water. Returning to the living room and collapsing on the sofa, he noticed a memo on the side table. I'm going to be late at a meeting. Heat up your dinner in the microwave. Nakajima crumpled the note without reading it to the end. If you're going to write the same old excuse, you might as well just photocopy the thing. After Nakajima's father was transferred to the branch office in Los Angeles, his mother had become more and more involved in her job as a designer. Sometimes she wouldn't get home until the middle of the night. Picturing his mother's face, Nakajima's smoldering rage suddenly flared up. The telephone rang. It was probably his mother. Glaring at the ringing phone, Nakajima opened the door to his room. Lacking even a single poster or decoration, Nakajima's room was quite dreary. The walls were filled with large steel bookshelves that stretched to the ceiling, the sole exception the wall with the window. The bookshelves had anime magazines and manga, as expected of a Japanese high school student's room, but one corner seemed starkly out of place. The shelf was filled with books on magic and sorcery with titles like The Book of the Dead and Panoptic manuscripts. A full decked-out computer sat on top of the steel desk, and sitting next to it was a general-purpose book on magic called The New Golden Dawn Theory. From the look of the wear on the leather cover, it was clearly a book that had seen a lot of use. Nakajima pulled his chair out from the desk and sat down in front of the display. He flipped the switch on the side of the speakers. The vocals of David Coverdale filled the room. Nakajima's fingers started flying over the keyboard. Anybody recognize those titles that are being referenced? Book of the Dead is either the Tibetan one or the Egyptian one. Panoptic manuscripts are, I believe, ancient Egyptian manuscripts on magic, and the New Golden Dawn is a reference to the Golden Dawn group of magicians from the United States in the 1900 something, 5, I don't know. Last century. Okay, he's put in a command code. I don't know what that's... He's command list. The command entered. A very long program scrolled down the screen. Following the program list with sharp eyes, Nakajima tapped the keys in a flowing rhythm. Nakajima first became interested in magic when he had the opportunity to read The New Golden Dawn Theory. The book was poorly written, the interpretation clumsy and unskillful, but Nakajima read through the whole thing anyway. The world of magic held an appeal that hid a dark and sinister side. Yet, it also showed a rational and scientific realism as well. While rereading the passages that seemed unusual to him 2 or 3 times over, Nakajima had a sudden realization that was almost like an epiphany. Magical theory and computer theory were surprisingly similar. Phil has corrected me. I've been missaying the word. My brain doesn't want to say it. Narcotic, I think. I don't know. I did say panoptic, not... Anyway. At first glance, the two worlds did not seem to have any connection to each other. However, the similarities between them had been noted by both magic and information technology researchers long before Nakajima's revelation. Professor Charles Feed of MIT, a school famous for its study of artificial intelligence, was one of those researchers. Nakajima had immediately become a member of his group, the International Satanist Garden. For the past few months, he'd been immersed in writing a program to summon demons, an idea he'd thought up himself. It was almost complete. Nakajima had already finished the core part of the program. All he had to do now was add a few subroutines, and it would be finished. Until today, Nakajima had had reservations about completing his project. If his theory was correct, the program would definitely call a demon into the world. Up until today, Nakajima couldn't think of a particular reason to summon a demon. He hadn't even known what he'd make it do. But the events of the day had given him a clear, simple goal. I feel a little sorry for you, but you're going to be the subject of an experiment. Nakajima started creating his final subroutines. Use data addresses 3780-3990 for Toad's Legs. Put this in the buffer, and before displaying the result, chant the spell Yod Dur Dwar Set. Wonder what that spell means. Yod is a Hebrew letter. I wonder if the other ones are too. Picking up the modem receiver, Nakajima dialed Arkham in Massachusetts to connect with ISG's host computer. As the connection picked up, his computer's display filled with the image of the demon, Lucifer. He called up the ISG AI craft and explained the situation. He asked about the spell. Nakajima's English was not particularly good, so several times the only thing that appeared on screen was question marks. Understood. Finally, Kraft appeared to have gotten it. Nakajima asked the AI what the spell meant. Highly likely to be a counter. Kraft's response indicated the spell was probably just a time counter. Thank you, Kraft. Nakajima cut the connection to ISG and set himself to the task of writing the subroutine once again. 2 hours later, there was a knock at the door. Come on in. A hint of irritation on his voice. Nakajima responded to the knock without taking his eyes off the program list on screen. Did you eat dinner? Nakajima didn't respond and continued typing on the keyboard. Oh, what happened to your lip? Nakajima's mother bent down from behind him to take a good look at his face. I ran into the goalpost playing soccer. Nakajima stopped typing and looked back to his mother. Nakajima bore a strong resemblance to his mother, a beautiful woman with a slender face. When they were together, they were frequently mistaken for siblings. When it came to her son's education, she was very conservative. She wanted him to get into Keio University's medical school. Of course, there were too many blemishes on his academic record for that to ever happen. Shouldn't you put some medicine on it? It's okay, Mom. It's not serious. Irritated at his programming being interrupted, Nakajima absent-mindedly tapped keys at random on the keyboard. Beep! The computer made a harsh tone and an error message appeared on screen. As if realizing her son wasn't going to pay her any mind, Nakajima's mother left the room. Lovecraft references? I missed that one. I don't know enough about Lovecraft to catch those. Yeah, he's coding a demon, apparently. 3 a.m. Oh, right, it's done! Nakajima slapped his thighs with his hands and stood up from his chair. Command, run. The disk drive started whining, and bizarre letters blinked on and off screen. But in less than 5 minutes, the screen displayed an error message and stopped. Out of memory. If there wasn't enough memory for the program, it was either because the program itself was too long, or because it dealt with more variables than the machine could handle. No big deal. One little computer isn't enough to run a program like this anyway. If I use the school's host computer, it should have more than enough memory. Nakajima's eyes glittered with anticipation. Prologue Chapter 3. Ieda, on night watch at school that Saturday, noticed there was someone in the CAI room and opened the door. Who's here at a time like this? At the sound of his voice, a student looked up from one of the CAI terminals, his face glowing strangely in the reflected light of the display. Ieda's expression softened. Oh, it's just you, Nakajima. What are you doing in here with all the lights off? Nakajima's academic record was far from perfect, but his genius had endeared him somewhat to the math and science teachers and earned their trust. My program's just not working out the way I wanted it to, but I'm almost done fixing it. Nakajima's voice seemed slightly metallic, as if in tune with the sound of the disk drive spinning. I'm always happy to see your enthusiasm, but you know you need to ask permission in advance if you want to work in the classroom late at night. You're lucky I found you instead of someone else, Ieda scolded as he flicked on the light switch. What is this? Ieda's shocked voice echoed through the illuminated CAI room. A large geometric figure was drawn on the floor in white and red chalk, with Nakajima's seat situated at the center. You know there's some hardcore, later on, right? No, I did not know that. We're going into this blind. We will skip that when we come on it. Don't worry, I'm not gonna read anything horrendous to y'all. But, that does not surprise me, given the era and the genre this is. Devilman and, Hideyuki Kikuchi and other stuff include that as well. It seems to be something of a trope. Summon demons, have bad times. Meet a vampire, have bad times. It's interesting to talk about because, you know, to the modern day, I think most of these stories are a little less, shocking, though there's parts that obviously most folks probably like, ugh, gross. But when these first came out, especially like Devilman, Hideyuki Kikuchi, I don't know as much this one, but it feels like it's in the same genre. It was revolutionary. It was shocking The first violent anime film was Vampire Hunter D, and it had never been done, did not think it could be done. People didn't think there was an audience for this. Devilman got repeatedly censored and banned and in trouble for the amount of content that he put in, because there was this fight against what was considered appropriate or not for fiction, because they pushed the horror boundaries. And part of that was a lot of stuff that was sexual. And I am not for or against anything really in general in fiction. It's all about how you write it and why you write it. So I tend to hold judgment until I see how it's used in the book. Kikuchi uses it sometimes to good use and sometimes not. His early works, I think he really struggled to properly combine his interest in sexuality and monsters. Later on, he does it much better. But it's definitely a part, and you think about Japanese history in general, how many of their artworks are like squids coming out of the sea to assault a lady? Like, there's a history there that I think these stories were drawing on and eventually created what we think of as the modern genres of horror, sci-fi, fantasy in Japan, which then, of course, influenced the world outside of Japan, because it's, I mean, who doesn't know about, like, The Ring and Grudge and all these other various horror stories, which they aren't really sci-fi fantasy, but y'all get what I'm meaning. Aw, thank you, Daniel, for the support. Devilman is very good. It's a manga and an anime, and I would recommend Crybaby. It's really good, but it does have some sexual assault warning. Where were we? What is this? Ieda's shocked voice echoed through the illuminated CAI room. A large geometric figure was drawn on the floor in white and red chalk, with Nakajima's seat situated at the center. It's a Solomon hexagram. Solomon? That has an occultish sound to it. Nakajima paid Ieda's sarcasm no heed, and his fingers slid over the keys of the terminal. Presently, the host computer behind thick glass walls in the adjacent machine room started to run. Great, the bugs are finally gone. It's done! After sending a print job to publish the contents of the program list, Nakajima stood and turned toward Ieda. His girlish almond eyes glittered amidst a demonic grin. His still healing lips split open from his excitement, and a trickle of fresh blood stained his jaw. Ieda's gaze became stern. All right, Nakajima, do you want to explain just what kind of program you're running on the host computer, and without permission, I might add? Nakajima brushed aside some hair from his forehead and responded nonchalantly. I've written a program that will summon demons. The hexagram is to protect me from them. In just a moment, a demon will appear. Sensei, you should probably get inside it as well. You might get shredded to pieces otherwise. For an instant, Ieda's mouth gaped open, and he took a long, hard look at Nakajima. Have you lost it? Is it me who's lost it, or the school? Sensei, take a look at me. This wound on my lip, the bruise on my face. I got the crap beaten out of me by Kondo from the karate club. Takamizawa Kyoko is just as guilty. The school lets wild animals like that run free and doesn't do anything to deal with them. No matter what happens to me in the classroom, the teachers and students just pretend it didn't happen. The violence that happens in this school is as plain as day, and yet nobody gets punished. I suppose the teachers are just waiting for students like that to graduate. As long as they keep their eyes shut, the calamity will clear up on its own. They just have to endure for 2 or 3 years. But this is the only time I get to be a high school student. I'm not going to let them do whatever the hell they want anymore. I'm going to summon a demon and execute those annoying insects. Nakajima's speech seemed manic, as his shoulders rose and fell in sync with his wild breathing. Nakajima turned away from the stunned Ieda and to the keyboard. Okay, we're right in the middle of the tense moment, and I just look at the chat, and Lowe's says, it's a program they call RuneScape. That got me. Kudos to you. Nakajima turned away from the stunned Ieda and to the keyboard. Command, run. The last command displayed on the monitor, the magnetic tape of the host computer started to gradually spin. Ieda tried to yell at Nakajima and stop the computer, but the moment he opened his lips, a frigid breeze from nowhere struck him and covered his arms in goosebumps. Summoning demons with a computer? What a concept! Ieda twisted his lips into a smile to hide his fear. Computer theory and magical thought have overlapping similarities. I bet the first person who thought up the principles of computing was an alchemist or Kabbalist. It's not that well known, but things like spells, sacrifices, and thaumaturgic circles are very easy to put into binary format. Summoning a demon is just a transfer of the matter comprising the demon in the Atsulith world to the Asaya, real world. A computer is the perfect device to facilitate it. Atsulith and Asaya are Kabbalist terms, Jewish mysticism. Asaya is the physical realm, and Atsulith is the energy realm, or possibly the demon realm. I'm gonna... Atsulith. It's the realm of pure divinity. The four worlds of Kabbalah relate to the Tree of Life. So Asaya is this world, and Atsulith is the highest realm, the realm of the gods, probably. Yetzirah is the formative world, Bariah is the creative world. Okay. So, Asaya is where we all manifest. Formative is like the idea of things. Creative is creation, energy, and the Atsulith is like God. And each of the four worlds connect to the four letters of God's names. He, Val, He, Yod, H, V, H, Y. Though that is out of order. Oh, they wrote it backwards, that's why. So, Yod He Val He. I was like, that doesn't sound like God's name. Anyway. Let's see here. As Nakajima explained his theory, cold air wrapped around Ieda almost like a living creature, and a bizarre smell entered his nostrils. The lights of the classroom flicked out, and the CIA room plunged into darkness, the only sound the spinning disk drive. Presently, the computer let out a hollow whine. Yod He Val He. To Ieda's ears, the whine sounded like actual real words. Yod He Val He. That's God's name. The letters of his name in Hebrew. Whispering in sync with the computer, Nakajima continued to enter commands on the keyboard with unbelievable speed. Soon the entire room started to shake from an earthquake, and cracks formed in the windows. Nakajima entered his final command. Kill Kondo Hiroyuki Takamizawa Kyoko. Ieda did not like students like Kondo Hiroyuki and Takamizawa Kyoko. In fact, he hated them. But he felt even more loathing for the manner Nakajima intended to deal with them. Stop this foolishness. If you'd like, I can make sure the incident is investigated fully and have Kondo expelled. Just stop doing this. Stumbling through the shaking room, Ieda desperately reached for the computer's power switch. To prevent him from interfering, Nakajima grabbed his arm with a strength one couldn't imagine from him. While the two struggled, the rumbling started to subside. The fluorescent lights lit up with a creaking sound and illuminated the room as the freezing air surrounding Ieda's body dissipated. Where did you go? Why won't you show yourself? Demon, are you going to abandon me? Crying out, Nakajima headed toward the keyboard. Command kill. Kill! But the host computer's magnetic tape slowly and mercilessly started spinning to a halt. Anxiously opening the program list, Nakajima scanned the details of the program with bloodshot eyes and stood aimlessly, as if sapped of all his vitality. My program was perfect. There wasn't a single bug in it. So why did the demon vanish before showing itself? It should have appeared right over there. Leaving the program list open, Nakajima stumbled out of the CIA room as if in a trance. Staring dumbfounded at Nakajima's back as he left, Ieda's finally came to his senses and turned off the power to the computer. I guess it's true they say there's a fine line between genius and insanity. That was one hell of an earthquake, though, Ieda whispered, as if trying to purge his memory of the repulsive experience. Yeah, I have a feeling that just coding it to kill is gonna end up going badly. Prologue, Chapter 4. Get my coffee real quick. A week later, Ieda was teaching Nakajima Akemi and Takamizawa Kyoko's math class in the CIA room. Perhaps it was because he'd witnessed the failure of the demon's summoning. But Nakajima was glaring at Ieda defiantly. Before, he would never have acted like this. I have the hiccups now. I wonder if I put 2 sugars in this by mistake. Oh well. Trying hard to ignore him, Ieda continued his lesson. Now I'm going to have you take an interactive test using the host computer. However, this test won't affect your grades in any way. Through your interaction with the computer, I'd like to get a little bit more familiar with any weak points you may have. Begin entering your commands as soon as I give the signal. The students all affixed their eyes to the screens and silently started answering the questions given them, as the host computer diligently recorded their individual responses. Ieda carefully watched over his class before relaxing a bit. Once the use of the CAI spreads, Once the use of CAI spreads, things will get a lot easier for us teachers. Though if it becomes too widespread, the time may come we teachers aren't needed anymore. Suddenly, as if coming from the depths of the earth itself, a low, rumbling voice shook the CAI room. Yod-he, va-he. The host computer's magnetic tape started spinning wildly, and the screens of the computers in the room started changing rapidly. Eerie colors and strange images flashed on screen, and strange letter-like symbols appeared and disappeared. The students said nothing, their eyes transfixed to the screens, as if the class was enthralled. Nakajima, this is your doing, isn't it? Come on now, there's nothing wrong with a little mischief once in a while, but there are limits. His face twisted into a dark scowl. Ieda started to walk over to Nakajima's seat. But the moment he moved, a student in the first row stuck his leg out into the aisle, tripping the teacher and causing him to clumsily fall forward. As Ieda tried to get up, 2 more students slammed into his back, pinning him to the ground and twisting his arms behind him. What are you doing? Stop this at once! Taken aback at the sudden hostility of his students, Ieda struggled to lift his head up as he cried out. The other students, staring ahead with glazed looks as if in a trance, stood up from their seats. 3 male students left the classroom, and the others gradually started to surround Takamizawa Kyoko. Her face drained of color. Kyoko stared dumbfounded as her classmates surrounded her. Her cat-like eyes were full of fear. Her lips trembled up and down, but held shut as if sewn together. A male student with thick glasses touched her chest. As if freed from a curse, Kyoko leapt up onto the desk. Stay away from me, asshole! Kyoko yelled out desperately, whipping out a razor blade held between her thumb and middle finger. Stop! Takamizawa, run! Ieda's shaking voice echoed through the classroom. Kyoko took a sidelong glance at her restrained teacher, spat, and swung her razor at the student that had touched her. His glasses flew off as his slashed cheek started oozing fresh blood. The student didn't falter or try to wipe the blood off. Obstinately, he grabbed Kyoko's right ankle. Alright, let me make sure that this isn't gonna be... Ooh, wow. Okay, this doesn't get weirdly sexual, but it does get violent. Let go of me, asshole! The razor slashed open the student's temple before it sank into his blood-soaked arm, breaking in 2. Taking advantage of Kyoko's surprise, another student grabbed her ankle, and the 2 students, now gripping both her legs, raised their arms, hoisting her in the air, dangling her upside down. Her skirt fell down round her waist, revealing white legs. Kano Miyuki, alongside Kyoko, one of the most beautiful girls in the school. She bit her in her thigh. Bending backward in pain, Kyoko attempted to fight back, flailing her arms like an animal caught in a trap, her drooping hair swishing wildly, but several students knelt down by her head and started to twist her neck around. Stop! Stop this! As Ieda cried out with tears in his eyes, a cold voice spoke. Sensei, it's too late. Nakajima, who had been at the computer entering commands the whole time, looked at Ieda with a sarcastic smile on his face. A meager whimper, as Kyoto's legs spasmed a few times. Without even attempting to wipe the blood from her face, Miyuki looked up at the 2 students holding Kyoko in the air and let go of her legs. Kyoko's twisted, lifeless body dropped to the floor. The circle of students broke up, leaving her behind. It's so bad that I started laughing in that, but just oh man, that's badass. They just held her up and... Sorry. That was cool. Sorry about your life. Well, we knew somebody was going to die in this, and obviously it's going to be the other class's students and probably that teacher, I would assume. But yeah, I wanted to check if it got real nasty, but no, they just twist her neck. You know how you do. The door opened as the 3 students that had left earlier returned, Kondo following behind them. After hearing that Kyoko was being ganged up on and verbally harassed by her classmates, Kondo came with a mind to teach the know-it-alls, the gifted class, a lesson. However, the classroom was completely silent, not at all what he was expecting. The 3 students led the perplexed Kondo to the center of the room, then quickly moved away. Oh my god. Seeing Kyoko's corpse left Kondo thunderstruck. Words escaped him for the moment. The students in the classroom surrounded him as if to cut off his path of retreat. Kondo probably could have gotten away had he set his mind to it, but his mind clouded with shock and anger. He didn't realize just how dangerous a position he'd walked into. You bastards! What have you done? You've killed Kyoko! His body shaking in rage, Kondo's furious, bloodshot eyes turned to the students. The normally meek students, who would usually run away if he merely looked at them, showed no signs of fear as they returned his harsh gaze. There was something seriously strange going on here. A groan. Looking in the direction of the voice, Kondo saw Nakajima standing over Ieda, his foot pinning the teacher's head to the ground. Nakajima? Never imagining for a moment that the pretty boy genius could be capable of something like this, Kondo was completely taken aback. Ieda called to him from the back of his throat. Run, Kondo! Everyone's gone mad! Called back to his senses by the teacher's voice, Kondo howled like a wild animal and charged Nakajima. Right before he reached Nakajima, a dozen students jumped on him and pulled him to the ground. Struggling with all his might, Kondo knocked off the students clinging to him, punching and kicking any that got close. But even with their foreheads split and their ribs shattered, the students picked themselves off the floor as if they felt no pain at all, and fiercely latched onto Kondo. One of them picked up a computer monitor and hit him hard in the back of the head. Kondo's vision blurred with the shock of the blow. He started to stumble. In that instant, the students pulled him to the floor again and restrained his limbs. Shit! Let me go! I'll kill you! Watching Kondo vainly struggle against the students trying to get free, Nakajima's handsome face twisted into a cold smile. Actually, you're the only one who's going to be killed here. I was hoping to have Kyoko be your executioner, but as you've seen, she's already died, so I've been nice enough to have Miyuki do the job for her. You should thank me. Cradling his chin in her hand as if in thought, Miyuki kneeled down near Kondo and brought her face close to his, her chin still covered in Kyoko's blood. Her warm breath caressed his cheek. Kondo's body stiffened up and he shivered a bit. The knife in Miyuki's hand flashed and was drenched in crimson. The gurgling cry came out of Kondo's severed windpipe. His eyes still open, his head folded backward with a sickening crunch. Now then. Nakajima crouched down and looked into Ieda's face. What do you think, Sensei? You see? My demon summoning experiment wasn't a failure. That day a demon really did appear inside the CAI Coast computer. We just didn't realize it. When I was in class here in the CAI room yesterday, the demon sent me a message. Kill, I understand. He can't escape from the computer, so he used group hypnosis to control the class. For an instant, Nakajima's eyes glittered with pity. As if to suppress it, he pressed his lips together and stood up. By the way, Sensei, I promised to give the demon 3 souls. Kyoko's, Kondo's, and one other. Wait, please wait. As Ieda desperately wheezed and struggled, 10 students dragged their feet along the floor, slowly approaching him. Well, that was the end of the prologue. Alright, we're gonna call it there. What a place to stop. I'm having a fun time with this. Very interesting. And I can see where a few decades ago in Japan, this would have been far more controversial than it is today. It's hard to imagine how different things were in not just in Japan. I know America went through similar things as well with media and censorship and issues of that in comic books, in literature. What is very easily publishable today in like TV and movies and books, and it was not in the early age. And stories like this is what helped it become possible to write really dark horror, like nasty stuff. I don't know all the details about how it went in Japan. I know a little bit about how various stories have influenced it. But I think it'll be fun to read some of these older stories and learn about how they've influenced modern storytelling. Yeah. I will be back tomorrow. I am going to try probably 9 o'clock tomorrow. Let me know what time in the morning. I'm thinking 7 o'clock was too early for most folks. 8 o'clock seems a little better. I don't know if 9 o'clock will be the sweet spot or we'll go back to 8, but we'll try 9 tomorrow and see how it goes. Students in it. Yes, sensei is Japanese for teacher. So just Japan, you would be sensei. In China, it is... Oh, come on. I learned this one yesterday. Come on! Laoshi? Laoshi in Chinese is teacher. And Shu Sheng is student in Chinese. I'm so good. Anyway, yeah, we are gonna chill today with more video games at like 2 o'clock. Yeah, that'll be fun. Let me know what time, if you don't want to tell me, or you don't say in the chat or comments, you can always come over in Discord. Let me know what times in the morning are best for you for readings, because I'm really enjoying doing little readings every day, and it's fun to read something I've not read before. I think we're going to start doing more of that, because it's more fun to react genuinely. Of course, I want to be sure to be able to warn people of things, but I think we can swing it, make it work. Thanks to all of our members for supporting me. Thanks to everyone for showing up, and I'll see you guys later tonight. Bye.